Salut everyone! In this video, I'm gonna show you if changing your operating system on this type of device is going to change your gaming experience. Are you ready? Let's get into it. As always, let's start with a little bit of context. The first question you're gonna ask yourself is that why would you remove SteamOS from this machine? Well, I made many videos about Linux distribution in general and how each of them is gonna impact your gaming experience, your overall feeling you get in game, the objective amount of FPS you're gonna get in this game versus another one. And this is a fact. There is some distro which are actually performing better than others when it comes to gaming. Now, for this one, it's a little bit more complicated, obviously, because we're gonna have a pretty limited amount of distro out there to review. So what were my choice for the distro selection? First distro I had to test, obviously, it's SteamOS. This operating system comes with the SteamDeck, and I have to tell you guys, it's actually awesome. I have nothing negative to say about the distro itself for this device. It has been built specifically for this hardware, and the experience is just awesome. If you want to learn more about what is behind the scene when it comes to this distro, I made a specific challenge where I use my Steam Deck for 2 weeks as my main PC with SteamOS on it, and I learned a lot about the operating system. So I'm going to put the link in the description below if you want to have more understanding of what this distribution has in the stomach. I really invite you to go watch this video. But this is the first operating system we will include in those benchmarks. And another point I need to add is that this is going to be the base for the result, because I believe that this is the most optimized distro on paper for this piece of hardware. So my second choice for distribution testing here is Bazzite. This is the most common distro and the alternative really pushed by all the Linux community, and I would say even more by all the gaming community. As a specific feature that differentiates it from the rest is, in my opinion, the layer of software they had regarding the Windows handheld gaming device. So let's say you have a MSI Claw and you install SteamOS on it, you won't have all the hardware support out of the box. All the nice features you have on the Steam Deck, which is the control of the TDP, the control of anything related to hardware, well, you won't have it. So Bazzite come actually super strong with HHD, or if you want the full name, Handheld Daemon, by providing all this hardware enablement for the Windows handheld. What it really does, it will give you access to all the hardware related features from your device. The fan curve, the TDP control, the controller emulation Gyro, the back button, etc., etc. This piece of software is actually well implemented in the UI. So when you are into the game scope session, aka Steam big picture, you press this button and you're gonna have access to all the hardware features that can be enabled on your device. And this is, in my opinion, really good. Now, I'm gonna try to be super short, but I did a full test of Bazzite for 2 months on my Steam Deck, and I was not super happy about it. I had issues related to performance. I can't explain what happened, but my FPS will be all over the place sometimes. It was totally random. I had issue also related to upgrading. I kind of fall into an upgrade loop where I couldn't just not upgrade my device anymore. And I've not been the only one to be there. I found a lot of Reddit posts of users who are exactly in my position. I was able to brute force it by forcing the install multiple times through the desktop mode, but what a pain. And I was kind of surprised, almost shocked by having this type of issue on an immutable distro. I felt I would be immune to this type of issue, but I guess I was not. And the other thing related to that is that I test the distro for gaming, it was fine, outside of the issue related to performance. But the HHD daemon I was talking just before is not available on the Steam Deck. So I couldn't really test this feature. So yeah, installing Bazzite on the Steam Deck, it's kind of like a May experience, to say the least. Now, the third distro I decided to bench in this video is CachyOS. For CachyOS, we all know the story about it. This is, in my opinion, the best or one of the best gaming distro out there, especially if you love Arch. And they have a specific handheld ISO with specific like optimization for all the handheld out there. I do believe they have a limited support, and you're gonna have to go on their website to see exactly like which device is supported or not. What it really does, like it uses the magic of the CachyOS kernel with the LAVD scheduler, optimized specially for handheld device, and they also have all the gaming application dependency installed by default. So you have like the full like Steam Big Picture experience like you would have on SteamOS or Bazzite, except that under the hood you have all the newest package and all the latest optimization. And this one I'm planning to do also a video and do a long test review because I have it on my Steam Deck right now, and so far so good. And the latest distribution I'm going to include in this specific benchmark and like comparison is Nobara. So Nobara, this one I just installed it on the Steam Deck to run the bench. I have no experience of it, rather than the bench I'm going to show you in the second part of the video. Same thing that CachyOS, distribution really good for gaming, which has now a specific ISO for all the handheld. And the latest operating system, I had to do it, guys. I did install Windows 11 on my Steam Deck. Yes, I did. I did, and how to explain, what a pain. It was a pain to install, it was a pain to find the driver. I had to go to a specific like Valve web page to have access to the APU driver of the Steam Deck, because believe it or not, the AMD chipset and / graphic driver, they don't support this APU. You need to install the one provided by Valve. And something that really like shocked me is that those drivers are super old. They are super old. The one for the OLED was like 1 year old, and the one for the non-OLED Steam Deck was like 2 years old. And I have to assume that this could be the reason why the performance was so bad on Windows, but we'll talk about it later. So now, before we move to the benchmark, I need to elaborate a little bit about the choice of operating systems there. This Steam Deck here was the one I did all the test on. And it's a Steam Deck OLED, everything is stock, there is no tweak about it, no overclock, nothing. So the number you're gonna see there, you should be able to reproduce on your hand by just installing the operating system mentioned there. The thing is, I had to reduce the amount of operating system and the amount of games overall, because I had to reinstall everything each time I did the bench. And man, this was taking a lot of time. Like, let's be honest, this thing is not the best. Even if I was using a 2.5 gigabyte Ethernet dock for this beast, it was still super slow. Okay, to download everything, I was downloading the game at around like 1 gigabyte. But most of the time, like when you download game on Steam, you have to decompress them, and the CPU was a little bit struggling. That's why I was still stuck at like 1 gigabyte. But yes, I had to make some choice. So for the choice of game, I went with game will have a bench in it, because I think it will be easier to actually like do it this way. The second one is like all the game I've been running them in the native resolution of the Steam Deck, which is 1280 by 900. Most of the settings have been put to low, or I put the Steam Deck settings if they were available in the game. All the bench have been made with the same version of Proton GE, super important. And the game I chose, they will be covering native game, DXVK game, and VKD3G game. And like that, we're gonna have like a broader like vision related to the performance in those benchmarks. Alright, so let's start with the first game, and first game is Shadow of the TombRaider. This game runs natively everything set to low, and you can see here that all the Linux operating system, they are all within margin of error when it comes to the performance. We have Bazzite who show a little bit of improvement on the minimum FPS and a little bit of weakness on the average FPS compared to SteamOS. We have CachyOS, which is outperforming every other Linux distro by a pretty solid margin there for this specific test. And you will see this might be a trend. When it comes to Windows 11, we are aligned with what all the other tech tubers discovered by comparing Windows versus Linux. Here, Windows 11 is really behind by 9% on the average FPS and 21% for the minimum lows, actually 20.5%. So this is actually pretty impressive to see how Linux is really doing merveille, as we say in French, wonderful on this type of device. For Cyberpunk 77, which is a VKG 3D game here, you can see right away that Bazzite is again a little bit behind when it comes to average, not by a lot, around 4.5%. Not that bad, but still worth mentioning. And if you look at the other distro, Nobara just exploded the average FPS there by reaching a solid plus 10% compared to SteamOS. So on this specific game, Nobara is a clear winner, with Bazzite being a little bit under compared to SteamOS and CachyOS. When it comes to Windows 11, this is going to be the trend too, almost. You will see that it's behind when it comes to Cyberpunk 77, and it's behind by 11.5% compared to SteamOS on the average, and 15% on the minimum lows compared to SteamOS. So here, it's another lose for Windows 11. Yeah, this is pretty satisfying to see the Microsoft team lose on this one. Now, the last game is Batman Origin. And on this one, you can see that Bazzite, for whatever reason, can just not make it. On the average FPS, Bazzite is 15% behind SteamOS, and on the minimum lows, it's behind by 36%, guys. It's just insane. So there, I'm not quite sure of what happened or what was happening at the time I made the benchmark. I didn't want to reinstall Bazzite on my Steam Deck. I won't lie to you, because I'm just tired of reinstalling on this freaking Steam Deck. But there is definitely something wrong. And again, I was mentioning earlier that I mentioned sometime I had some weird performance issue. Maybe it did happen when I was running this benchmark, but yes, it was pretty odd. Now for CachyOS, we are aligned with SteamOS, same performance. And for Nobara, however, we are aligned with the result of Bazzite. So this is where I'm whoa, maybe there is some type of trend there. So on the average, Nobara did way better than Bazzite, but it's still underperforming compared to SteamOS and CachyOS. And when it comes to the minimum lows, it's exactly the same than Bazzite. So a huge loss here of 37% compared to SteamOS. It's just crazy. So I can't really explain it, but when you move from 112 FPS to 70 FPS for the minimum lows, you're going to feel it. And especially on the Steam Deck OLED, because the refresh rate is at 90 FPS. Those dips, you're going to feel them on those two distros no matter what. Now, when you come to Windows 11, you're going to be whoa, Air Max, Microsoft lost on the two previous games, but it's just a banging of an experience compared to what was happening before, right? Right? Well, no. This is the funny part too. Yes, the FPS were actually way better because it's within margin of error compared to SteamOS when you look at the average. And for the minimum FPS, Windows 11 here still lose 9% compared to SteamOS. But here is the kicker. the game, for whatever reason, was not pushed correctly on my screen. It was like kind of like pushed vertically but horizontally at the same time. I'm gonna put a B-roll here for you to see what the heck was going on. Couldn't fix it. So yes, on paper you had better FPS on Windows 11 than on Bazzite, for example, but no, you can't play the game. So yes, that's another issue we're gonna talk in the conclusion, but meh. Now let's move to the average. In there, what I just did the average for the minimum FPS and the average FPS for all the game, and try to compare really where we really land using any type of operating system on a Steam Deck. And the base is always the same, is SteamOS. So SteamOS will represent 100%. And if you go down to Bazzite, and you will see that on the average FPS compared to SteamOS, you're gonna lose 9.5%, which is a little bit insane in my opinion. And compared to the minimum FPS, you're gonna lose around 19.5%. So I do understand that the panel of game tested it is a little bit small, and it would have been more interesting maybe to test like 100 of games. But when it comes to, again, like methodology and pain to install like each time a new operating system and new game on this machine, it's not fun at all. But I think we are not far from the truth here for Bazzite. For CachyOS, no problem. We actually overperformed SteamOS, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. Not by a lot, 0.5% on the average FPS and 1.5% for the minimum FPS. But the overall story here is like, there is some distro which are able to fight neck to neck versus SteamOS. And this is actually nice to see. After, if you want to have a big hip penis and be like, hey, I installed the best distros that I can ever install on my Steam Deck and I got 1.5% more FPS. Yes, install CachyOS. Okay, you will see there is some drawback. We're going to talk about them in the conclusion. But yes, you will have on paper more FPS. You're going to move from 65.5 to 66.5. Yeah. Concerning Nobara, on the average, you won't see any difference. This is 0.5% difference, so it's margin of error. On the minimum lows, however, you're gonna be, again, like a little bit under. I was really surprised by the number because this is all related, again, to the Batman Origin bench. But again, I have to show it to you guys because there is maybe an issue with those two distros for this specific game, but it is what it is. So now let's talk about Windows 11. And Windows 11 here, I was also surprised by the results because the overall like common like thought, and this is what I really thought too, is that the average FPS when we move from Linux to Windows, and especially with the AMD like device, you're gonna lose like between like, let's say like 10 to 15%. And here we just lost really like 5%. It's still significant, but it's not as big as I thought it will. So my guess is like depending on the game you try, you're gonna get different results, obviously, but it's not as big as I thought. When it comes to the minimum lows, here we're gonna be more into what I was thinking. We're gonna lose around like 13% compared to SteamOS, which is huge, don't get me wrong. But again, I was expecting maybe the average to be near the same, I would say, like difference while moving from SteamOS to Windows 11. For this specific line, though, I would say like take it with a grain of salt too, because one of the game was actually not playable on the Steam Deck, even if the bench itself was good, the experience was not there. So guys, how do we conclude this one? This one is a tough one, guys. This one is a really tough one because when you install an operating system on this type of device, obviously you expect performance, right? You want to have the more FPS you can get. And if you look at the raw number here, CachyOS is a winner. It's a winner, there is no question asked. But there is more to the story. There is more to the story because if I had to choose right now, I will still go with SteamOS. Because yes, I won't have the best experience while gaming. I'm going to lose a little bit of FPS. Like in this case, it's like 1.5%, which is literally nothing. But SteamOS brings that none of the other one bring. It's the actual like experience for upgradability, and I would say like the iron out of all the bugs. And this is pretty crucial. So for example, within SteamOS, when you upgrade within like Steam Big Picture, it will upgrade everything. It will upgrade the desktop side. It will upgrade like literally everything. If you run any of the other distro out there, when you upgrade within the Steam Big Picture, you don't upgrade the other side. It's different. So that's I would say like the type of experience you're gonna have to go through, right? If you want to use this machine as a desktop, then SteamOS is definitely not the one to go for multiple reasons. The first reason is that it's a cool operating system. Again, I already invite you to go and watch my video about it. But it's gonna generate like more friction compared to, for example, like a Nobara or a CachyOS. Okay, it's still not as flexible as a conventional distro. So let's say you are a big fan of Nobara and you want to have the same experience on your Steam Deck. Yes, let's go with Nobara because now you won't be, like changing your whole environment, moving from one to another. And this is great. And I really appreciate the fact that developers like Glorious Eggroll are willing to put the time to have a Steam Deck ISO or even like handheld ISO for the specific project. I think it's cool. And I feel that if you're a CachyOS lover, well, you can install CachyOS Handheld. But you got the idea, right? When you come to Windows, well, you're gonna have exactly the same problem, right? So even if we pass the idea of the performance and the fact you lose a lot of FPS running on Windows, well, man, like, when you come to the overall experience, it's just trash. It's just trash because Windows is not made for this type of device. And so you're gonna be like stuck on your desktop, like everything become more complicated. If you want to plug an external like screen, it's gonna be a mess. I did it live and it was a mess. It was literally a mess to set up. The upgrades, they take so much longer time than any Linux operating system. Like it's just bad. It's just bad UI, bad user experience at this point. And now let's talk about the elephant in the room, Bazzite. Because Bazzite is one of the most like pushed distro out there for the handheld. And Bazzite on Steam Deck is a no-go. So obviously, like a lot of you guys are gonna be like, hey, what would you install that on your Steam Deck when you have SteamOS? And you will be right. But maybe, you have your computer again on Bazzite, your main desktop, and you want to stay in the environment of Bazzite because you think it's fun. Well, man, like the performance there was not good. And the experience too, because as I mentioned earlier, I had issue regarding the upgrade. So maybe I was unlucky, maybe the other users they were also unlucky, but it kind of like make me more curious about what could be the difference in terms of performance between SteamOS installed on a Legion Go, for example, versus Bazzite, right? Because let's think that Bazzite is not really adapted for the Steam Deck. Is it the same case for Legion Go, for example? Like, are they actually really supporting the hardware? Can we see like a good output in terms of, benchmark versus SteamOS? I don't have those answers. I don't have the hardware. But if some of you guys have the hardware and are just like willing to do those tests, just to have an idea where Bazzite stand, I will be really, really curious to see the result. Like super curious. But yeah. That's all, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoy the content. As always, don't forget to put a thumb up, a comment below. It helps with the algorithm. I want to also thank all the members of La Crème de la Crème Club. Whether you are helping me financially via PayPal, Patreon, or YouTube membership, you guys are the best. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one. Bisous, bisous.